Hello everybody, in this video we're going to take a look at another state for 2024. It's not necessarily a battleground state, but this was a very close state in 2016, and that is going to be Minnesota. So if you're not familiar with these maps, the left side are the presidential changes between 2012 and 16, and on that map, if you're focusing on Minnesota, there are a lot of red lines moving sharply toward the right, but around the Twin Cities there's something else happening. Those lines are blue and they're going the other way. Now, the right map are the changes between 16 and 20. There the entire state has almost no red whatsoever. There's a lot of slow-moving blue up and toward the left. So this state has not voted for a Republican for president since 1972. Is there a chance this time this is a dark horse state that could be competitive, or is it more fool's gold for the Republicans? Well, let's find out by going back to 2012 and taking a look at some recent history. In that election for Barack Obama's second term, he won the state easily. He got over 52.5% of the vote to Mitt Romney's 45. That was good enough for a 7.7% margin of victory. That was narrower than his win 4 years earlier back in 2008, but if we look a little bit closer at this county map, we can see there are more red counties on here, but a lot of these are lighter red, which means Romney won these with less than 60% of the vote. So there's still also a lot of rural blue counties on this map, but the bulk of the blue vote is going to be in and around the Twin Cities. That's mostly concentrated in two counties. The most populous is right here. That's going to be Hennepin. That has Minneapolis, and right next door is Ramsey County, and that has St. Paul. So theoretically, all Democrats have to do is run it up huge in these counties, and they should be able to win the state. Like with most states that have a dense blue urban population, the suburbs are also a significant factor. And those counties here are Dakota to the south, Washington to the east, and Anoka to the north. Even going back this far, two of those three counties are light blue. Now, I can't go over every county, but a lot of the state does have a more rural, working-class, blue-collar population. Those are the kinds of counties that have tended to swing toward Trump. But there's also the Iron Range in the northeast part of the state. That's going to be a more ancestral Democrat area that's more pro-union. Democrats did well in these counties, including this huge one here, which is St. Louis County. The southern part of that does have the medium-sized city of Duluth, but Republicans have historically not stood much of a chance in this region of the state. So with some of those counties outlined, let's jump ahead 4 years and take a look at 2016. This time, Hillary Clinton won the state with about 46.5% of the vote, which was about 6% worse than Obama did. Meanwhile, Trump did almost exactly the same as Mitt Romney. He got just under 45% of the vote, and his raw vote total was almost identical to Romney's. So with Hillary winning the state by an unexpectedly narrow margin of 1.5, where did the rest of that vote go? Well, you can see here there's a lot of third-party candidates. Gary Johnson led the way with almost 4%, and there were other candidates over 1%. So on a glance, this time it would seem like a lot of those Obama voters ended up going third-party instead of supporting Clinton this time. If we look at the margins in these counties, we can go right to the most populous of Hennepin, and Hillary had a massive margin here of 35 points with 63%. Next door in Ramsey, Hillary did even slightly better. If you go into the suburbs and take a look at Dakota, that was much more narrow, but Hillary did win it by 4.5. Washington was even narrower. Hillary won it by under 2. And Anoka County went in the other direction. Trump won it comfortably by about 9.5 points. But if you go up to the Iron Range, St. Louis is the county that has the population. Hillary won that by 12, but she was still able to capture some of these rural counties. Now, if you look at the strengths for Trump, this time there's a lot more red counties, and a lot of them are dark red, meaning Trump was now starting to win these with over 60% of the vote. Some of them get up to around 70. So that was a huge shift in these more rural blue-collar counties. It might seem tough to make this state competitive with all that blue vote around the Twin Cities, but if you add up all these margins in these deep red counties, that was enough to make the state competitive, and it ended up being a very late call in favor of Hillary. So that's 16. Let's jump ahead 4 more years to the last election. This time Biden wins this state by about 7. He got his total back up to just about what Obama got in 2012, 52.4. Trump this time also improved his margin slightly to 45.3. The difference in this election is there is much less of a third-party vote. Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian, led the way with only 1.1 this time. So again, on a glance, it would seem like this time, with less third-party vote, Biden was the beneficiary. Now, we'll come back to the county map in just a moment, but if we go down here to take a look at the list of the county margins and sort by total votes cast, here again in the two most populous counties, we see Biden with more than 40-point margins. He's in double digits in Dakota, and the largest county that voted for Trump was Anoka, but the margin there was down to just 1.9. And the next three medium medium-sized counties, Biden was able to win by between 9 and 16 points. If you scroll down to the less populated counties, there you could see Trump really running up his margins. He's easily over 30 or 40 points in many of these counties. But also keep in mind there still are a few lower population counties that are voting for Biden. So now we can take a look at some of these changes over the past 3 presidential elections. For that we get on Ballotpedia. Now the shading this time does not reflect the margins, but if you go up here and hover over the blue battleground counties, these are counties that Trump won in 16, but Biden was able to capture in 2020. There's not a lot of them, but every little bit helps. The more notable counties here are the counties that are trending Republican, and these are the counties that are defined as having voted for Obama twice, but ended up switching and supporting Trump both times. So there's a good chunk of those counties spread out across the state. Now let's go through some of these margins. Let's go back to Hennepin. You can see back in 2012, Romney was already getting wiped out here, but since then it's gone completely toward the left, and Trump's brand has just not resonated in this county. It's the same thing next door in Ramsey. Trump did worse than Romney, but about the same as he did in 16, but this time without the third-party vote. Biden went up about 6 points. If we go south to Dakota, this was competitive in 12 as well as 16, but in 2020 it went left off a cliff. Biden won it by well into double digits. It's similar in Washington County, competitive in 12 and 16, but in 20 Biden wins it by close to double digits. The large population center for Trump in Anoka County, that's kind of in line with how it voted back in 12, but if this county flips and goes blue next time, it's going to be very difficult to see how this state could actually be competitive. Now other counties to take a look at, here's Olmsted County. This has Rochester, but it was very competitive in 12 and 16, but yet again in 20, Biden wins it by over 10 points. If you go up to the Iron Range in St. Louis County, this has a mixed result. After Mitt Romney lost by 30 points, voters did move toward Trump here. He still lost by about 12, but then in the last election, it goes hard toward Biden and he gets it by about 15. So there are plenty of other counties you could take a look at on here. Once you go out to the rural places, many of those did already vote for Romney back in 12, but once Trump came along, he rapidly accelerated the rightward lurch. A few of them went farther toward the right in 2020, but there are a bunch of them that did go a couple of points back toward the left. So you could spend a lot of time on here if you'd like, and as always, all these links will be down below in the description. So let's move on to another map of 2016. This will show you the view of the individual precincts. At first, it starts off with the counties, and it looks like there's a lot of red on here. But if we go in on a place like Duluth in the Iron Range, there you can see how in an urban area, Hillary winning a lot of these precincts by a better than 2-to-1 margin. Now normally once you get out to less populated areas, that's when it gets significantly redder. But in the Iron Range, that's not necessarily the case. There are some light red precincts, but there's also still a lot of blue. And you could take a look at this for the entire state. Now we could do the same thing for 2020. And this time on a glance, it looks like there's still a lot of red in this state. And that's technically true, but a lot of that red just does not have a lot of population. But on this map, we can click here and look at the changes between 16 and 20. Once you click on that, all of a sudden things change. This time it's a complete mix of red and blue. So that again goes to show you, even in these rural counties, Biden generally did slightly better in a lot of places. Now we can also zoom in on this and get a precinct view of the Twin Cities, and it's pretty much all bad news for Trump. Most of these precincts shifted 5 to 10 points toward Biden. There are a few here around St. Paul that did go slightly toward Trump. The problem for him is that's just a drop in the bucket compared to this sea of blue. This was a dramatic leftward shift in the suburbs, and it almost doesn't even matter how much Trump can run it up in the rural counties. He would have to reverse this trend at least a little bit to remain competitive in the state. Now if you want even another way to look at these county shifts, this map has the red and the blue arrows showing the direction of the shift between 16 and 20. The bigger the arrow, the bigger the shift. And as I said, there are some counties that did go toward Trump, but the places that had any kind of decent population went toward Biden, plus he did do better in some of the rurals. Now you could also click on any one of these arrows to get more information about the shift. So if we go toward the middle of the state and take a look at Stearns County, that has St. Cloud. There we can see both Biden and Trump gained raw vote total, but Biden gained a lot more. He was at 6,300 while Trump was at 3,300. And one of the big themes is that third-party vote. It went down significantly by 5.7 all the way down to just 2.4. And overall, between all the shifts, Biden did 5.4% better while Trump went up just 0.2. So it's not all third-party vote, but it does seem like that was a major factor for Biden improving his margin. So you could do the same thing for any one of these counties, but let's focus a little bit more on the third-party vote. If we get back on Ballotpedia and look on the right side, overall in the entire state, it went down 6.3%. And throughout all the changes, Biden went up 6 while Trump went up just 0.4. And that's a total net shift of 5.6 in favor of Biden. It's kind of similar to Stearns County, which we just took a look at. So it's tough to say who's even going to be on the ballot and which way the third-party vote is going to go next time. But if you look at the last 2 elections, it would seem like there's a lot of Hillary Hillary voters that might have sat out in 16, and in 20, a lot of them ended up going toward Biden. Now, another thing that's going to matter is going to be the turnout. If you look at this map, this will show you the turnout changes between 16 and 20, and it's pretty much up across the country, but if you focus on Minnesota, it's up big, double digits in and around the Twin Cities. Most of the rural counties have an increase as well, but it's less dramatic than the high population centers. So turnout overall could be key, but also the shifts among specific demographic groups. Here are the exit polling changes between 16 and 20 among different demographics, including sex, age, education, and race. Again, I can't go over everything, but if you just isolate to Minnesota, here are the strengths and weaknesses amongst different demographics for Biden and Trump. And this article from back in 2020 kind of illustrates some of the changes in the state. This talks about the Iron Range and how there were ancestral or legacy Democrats that are moving away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. Now, this was pretty much all offset by the losses Trump suffered in the suburbs, but there still is some vote out there in some of these lighter red or blue counties that theoretically Trump could squeeze more vote out of. The union vote in a lot of these counties that is centered around the mining industry, they used to be rock solid for the Democrats, but that's no longer the case. Positions in the direction of populist economics seems to be what these voters are interested in, but I would also guess on a cultural level, Trump could also appeal to some populist issues there. Now, the last thing we could do is go back to 2020 and take a look at the accuracy of the polling. So again, Biden won the state by just over 7 points. The polling aggregates were different. Real Clear Politics had Biden up over 4, while 270 to win and 538 had Biden up over 9. So that kind of evens out to about 7.8. So it's kind of a mixed result, but overall there might have been a small overestimation in Biden's support. So sometimes the polling is off. Usually in the Rust Belt it has underestimated Trump, but in Minnesota, at least based on these polls, it does not seem like there's a significant error in favor of Biden or Trump. So what is the conclusion for this state? Well, this is not a state that Trump needs to win at all. Given that he made it unexpectedly close in 16, there might have been some expectation that it was going to be super competitive in 2020. Turned out that wasn't the case at all. A lot of that could be explained by the reduction in third-party support, but as we've seen, there are some places that voted heavily for Trump, but still swung a couple of points toward Biden. If Biden somehow ended up losing this state, then it would seem like it's going to be a landslide for Trump. Trump made it more competitive than it's ever been, but his brand for the suburbs has been increasingly off-putting. There's not enough red rural vote for Trump to be able to win if he can't close the gap a little bit in the suburbs. But this is an interesting state. There's a long presidential drought here for the GOP, and even statewide, Republicans have had very little success here over the past couple of decades. Democrats control all the statewide offices as well as the state legislature, and some of the polling for 2024 has shown a narrow race. So it could be an under-the-radar sleeper state to take a look at in a few months, but it's not really one of the pivotal battlegrounds. If Biden completely lets his guard down and there's unexpected shifts, then it could easily get down to low single digits. But we've got to see what happens with the third-party vote and which way independents are going to go. But that's an overview of Minnesota, so let me know in the comments, what do you think about the land of 10,000 lakes? Could this state actually be competitive, or are the suburban trends just way too much? How much of a factor is the third-party vote, and which counties are you taking a look at? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.